Okay. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I'm glad we get to do this today because we've got so much going on. When we zoom out, we've got Iran, which is a very big deal for the
Yeah.
nation. I think we've had 5 Islamic terror attacks in a span of 2.5 weeks. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to process there. And you showed me something where in Little, is it Silva?
Sylva, North Carolina by Western Carolina University, which is pretty rural.
That's extreme. Yeah, it's on the way up to Asheville. So those of you that are in Raleigh, my way, or
Past
up,
Asheville. It's on the way to me.
it's on the way. Yeah, it's past. Oh, okay, past Asheville. Um, so they're building a mosque now, and we ask ourselves, huh, what's going on there?
What's weird is they don't call it a mosque. They call it an Islamic assembly center. They didn't use the word mosque.
Well, there's so much that, I mean, we've talked about this. We've had on guests before.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot that we know, and there's much that we don't know. And so, just to talk about all this, and by the way, it's so funny because I'm kind of the resident expert. People think that I am because they ask me all these questions about Iran, et cetera. Many of them I can answer, but a lot of them I can't. And so that's why it's going to be a great opportunity to bring on a friend of mine. Brother Rashid is here. Hello. How are you?
Hello, how are you? I'm good. Thank you for
Good.
having me.
It's good to meet you. I finally get to talk to you. I've heard so much about you and what you've done in the state of North Carolina to help with terrorism, but our audience is not familiar with you, Brother Rashid. Would you mind introducing yourself and explaining your background and how you've been involved in North Carolina specifically?
Okay, my name is Rashid. I am known by Brother Rashid because I don't use my last name for known reasons, especially with what's going on right now with terrorism, and people are trying to trace my where I live and what I do and where I go. So I'm trying to keep that away from people. So people know me by Brother Rashid. My background: I was born and raised as a Muslim in Morocco, and I converted to Christianity when I was about 16, 17. And then I had to flee Morocco to the US. And I started doing shows for Middle East and North Africa about Islam, Christianity, and politics. I have a bachelor's degree in comparative religions and a master's in political science, concentration Middle East. And I have been doing shows since 2006. So it has been 20 years so far. I have presence on social media. I wrote 3 books, some of them translated to English, some not, and other languages, French and others. So I hope this summary will help people, but also how I got involved in North Carolina is through friends like Sloan and others. So I was invited and I was able to do a presentation there and talk to other people who are involved to explain to them exactly what we're dealing with.
And so this is the one thing you left out, which I think is important. You understand some of the terrorism elements that a lot of people do not. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today. But I wanted people to understand your background and also that you can understand the forces we're dealing with, whether it's
Yes.
in America or not.
Mhm. Well, I wrote a whole book. It's called The Ideology Behind Islamic Terrorism. It's a 500-page book. It's on Amazon, and I explained it from A to Z. And actually, I'm never surprised by anything happening when it comes to Islamic terrorism. I explained it. I grew up in it, and I knew exactly how it spread and how it recruits people, how people execute it, and how it's affecting the whole world.
Well, it's
Yeah.
very interesting because Margot, you've got on the one hand, I mean, if you're watching this on the I guess you're on the left side, right, Rashid? You've got someone who is an expert in it, and then you've got someone here that's been actually through it and seen it up close and personal. And I've had a very good friend of mine killed by Hamas, and there is nothing like looking at the newspaper and having Hamas taking credit for the murder of your own friend. So it does more, it does more individual damage. And I assume, I went to the gun range today, and I had an instructor who's been through, war, obviously, he's a vet, etc. And I said, it's crazy, because when you have this PTSD, when you're in the military, you're trained for that to happen. When you're a civilian and have an IED explode, you don't. And I said, now there are more and more people that are having to go to places like the gun range or wherever, and are like re-traumatized by this, because when I went through it, it was, New York and Boston, it was such a small amount. Now, Rashid, I mean, we just had 4 or 5 Islamic attacks, and every individual, you guys, that happens to, right? Whether they saw it or, God forbid, were killed in it, it affects about 100 people within that circle. It's not just that person.
Yeah.
It affects everything.
It affects the whole community, not just people who saw it or experienced it very closely. Look at 9/11, how it changed the whole trajectory of history, how it changed the U.S. and the whole world. One incident can change the whole world. And look at October 7th and how it's keep changing the Middle East and the whole world around it. Terrorism is no joke. Terrorism is about the whole world. So that's why we have to talk about it. We have to debate it. We have to find the roots of it, and we have to fight it, because nobody will be safe, even if they think they are somewhere safe and it doesn't affect them. It will affect them one day or another.
It's funny you bring that up. My husband went to war in Saudi Arabia, and he also did Afghanistan and Iraq. And one of the things I heard from his friends is they were not prepared at first when they went there, because you can be around people and think they're nice, honest people, and they're not. They're not. They present one way when they're not. And they weren't trained to take that look at someone and not see kindness when somebody tried to act like they were kind, but truthfully, they were strapped with a bomb or were bringing people in. You know what I mean? And I think that when you talk about how it affects a community, it's not just a community in a neighborhood or in a state. It's a military community. It's all types of communities, church communities. And so it's interesting to me that you bring it up in that manner. And my question to you would be, can you explain to us why Americans refuse or don't see that it's finally on their land? Why they don't see it?
It's the human nature. We tend to forget because we don't like pain, and so I think it's our nature. We try to forget and move on. People after 9/11, they were saying we will never forget, and look, they just elected Mamdani, and they are having call for prayer in downtown Manhattan, and people are taking the whole Times Square to pray there during Ramadan. And so it seems that people forgot quickly. So that's the human nature. People try to ignore or try to forget or try to pretend it doesn't exist because it's painful when you try to think, and it's scary when you think there is like a percentage of people that live probably in your neighborhood and they want to kill you. So we just like try to ignore it as much as we can, but it's not going anywhere. We have to deal with it at certain time. We have to face it. Terrorism will never go away unless you face it. And the only way you face it, you expose the ideas, and you fight it on the ground. And you fight it by force and violently. You cannot let it grow.
Right.
Wow.
And grassroots is really the ticket. I think we talked to Andrew Boston on this show, who said something very revealing. He's an expert in terrorism. He was also a Brown medical professor. So he's kind of a Renaissance man. Remember that, Margot, where he said that really, there's, I mean, Rashid, you and I are on the front lines of this war. It's a PR war. It's not a kinetic front that we fight on. Right. And as you said, we're always under threat, et cetera. And it's very real. And so part of that, we're on the front lines of that, but we need to equip people to be, and Andrew said this, the only way to fight this is grassroots, because, until people really get adrenalized and understand what this means, the lawmakers, because to your point, they're going to fall back on the point of the most comfort, right? They don't want to offend anyone. And we'll talk about Randy Fine in a second. They don't want to, they're, kind of.
I think it's beyond that. I think there are people in politics that want to guilt you into being accepting of something you shouldn't accept. Does that make sense when I say it that way? It's like the word what is it? I'll say it wrong. Islamophobia. We're not supposed to have that. It's
the Democrats that do. I mean,
correct.
Unfortunately, this has become a partisan issue. I mean,
Correct.
I was in New York during 9/11 and had the pleasure of living in New York during that time and 2 years after. And it was, the most uniting feeling, etc. Now I won't set foot into the place. Right. And so, but my point is that back then, it was not a partisan issue. It was a matter of national security.
Right. Well,
But
you
talk
brought
about
you
that,
brought
Richard.
you brought Islamophobia. I was talking to a friend of mine who's also from a Muslim background, and he left Egypt and he went to Europe. He lives in Sweden, and the rise of Islamic terrorism is really high in Sweden, more than the U.S.
Yeah.
And he sent me a book, and the way he described Islamophobia, I was laughing when I read what he was writing. And he said it this way. He said, if you see a wolf on TV and you are afraid, that's a phobia. But if you see a wolf in front of you and you are not afraid, then there's something wrong with you. You have to run for your life. So exactly the same thing. If nothing happened and people are afraid of Islam, we will call it a phobia. But if people are turning around and they hear Allahu Akbar and somebody explodes himself, the only natural reaction is fear for your life at that moment. And Muslims are trying to silence people so they will never criticize Islam. And they are using Islamophobia as a weapon to silence us.
And they're making people feel
even arresting people, Rashid. You might be surprised to know that in America, they're even arresting you for it. But I digress.
No, that's true. You cannot create a place of awareness where you educate someone on what a kafir really means, because you are racist.
Yeah.
And committed a hate crime. But anyway, never shop at Harris Teeter. Go ahead anyway.
So, but back to that whole theme of what we just talked about, the wolf and Islamophobia. It's such a weird dynamic, right? We never really heard that term until after 9/11, right? It was not something that was pronounced. And now they try to guilt you with it. It's like the racist word, that was the big word. That's still the big word. If you're a Republican, you're racist. But you're also, if you're Islamophobic, you're bad, because you actually have a fear for something that they don't think you should fear, but we know you should. Does that make sense? It's the psychology of it.
It's not going to. That's why we have to debate it, and that's why we have to expose it, because when you look at details, it doesn't hold up. Islamophobia is a very it's a weaponized tool or a term that was created to fight anybody who is trying to point to the danger. And let me ask those who use Islamophobia. United Arab Emirates, for example, they ban the Muslim Brotherhood and they fight people who are trying to do any acts of terrorism. Do you think United Arab Emirates have a phobia of Islam? It's a Muslim country. In Morocco, nobody there, if even they think about it, if they start planning or they say anything, here in the US, you have so much freedom. I see so much have been said on social media. It will not stay for a second in any Muslim country. People, we have videos of people calling Muslims to fight America and bring it down. Imagine they are doing that in Egypt or in Jordan or in Morocco. They will be arrested right away. So do you think those people, they have a phobia of Islam? They don't. They know exactly what's going to happen if they let it grow.
And I think it's interesting you bring up Morocco and Turkey. I mean, I'm sorry, specifically Egypt and the other countries. I don't think a lot of Americans realize what those countries think of Islamic terrorism. Like, it is forbidden, is it not?
It's not here. I think people differentiate between action and words. So if somebody says, for example, we will Islam will rule America, one day we will have Sharia law, one day we will hang people in the streets, we will kill apostates and stuff, they will let it go here because it's part of freedom of speech. If he goes to Morocco and makes a YouTube video and says these things, he will be staying in jail for 20 years. So they don't play with it. They don't take any chance because they have seen it firsthand and they learned from it, and they don't care what you are going to say. Here, people are defending them on, especially on the left, and they don't mean this. Oh, jihad is just inner struggle and this. So they keep giving them a room where terrorism is growing, and nobody's fighting it except few of us.
Well, that makes a very big difference, because here, like we talked about the wolf in the story earlier, there's a biblical story about the boy who cried wolf, right?
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of people in America who run their mouths and they say things like that. And so I think some people don't know the boy who cried wolf. And then we get in the position where we have a terror attack that we should have seen, and we knew the FBI should have known about, and they did, but nothing was done, right?
Yeah. Well, like the guy in Virginia, he was arrested before because of ISIS, and still he was released, and he didn't got. I think he got a very light sentence. If this same guy was in United Arab Emirates, he would have stayed at least for 30 years, if not more. If in Morocco, the same thing. But the U.S., they believe like we are dealing with normal people, give them a second chance. Probably he was young, so they give them the benefit of the doubt. And look what happened. A terrorist attack that killed a person, injured another one, and a person who was actually fighting for America and protecting us. But unfortunately, he was killed home, like the safest place in a college. It must be the safest place in America, and he was killed there. And the guy in Michigan, he's from a Lebanese background. He's a Shia. His brother, as I read, belongs to Hezbollah. And how do we let these people in first place?
It's even worse, Rashid, because what the media is doing is saying, oh my God, this poor guy in Michigan, his family was liquidated by Israel. He was living in Lebanon. So you and I read that and we're like, oh, okay, he was in Hezbollah. I mean, we knew right away. If the IDF comes for you, you are part of Hezbollah. So I recognized it right away as a Hezbollah cell. CNN, all these people, I think with the exception of CBS, I have to call this out. CBS, I think their first headline was actually that. So they have set themselves apart, I want to say. But this is ridiculous. In other words, the Jews did it.
Yeah, and also you turn the terrorist to a victim.
Right.
Since when we do that? Since when? It's twisting the whole narrative. The terrorist who killed people will feel sorry for him that his life got ruined because of Israel and the U.S.
Well, the Boston Marathon guy, this really hit home for me because I was in that terror attack, getting ready to sit down on the bleachers right before they exploded. I mean, I didn't know if my husband was alive or dead for an hour. That is some serious trauma. And then you go a year later when the guy's on trial, or even before that, the Rolling Stone magazine has this glamour shot of this asshole right, as some great guy. And actually, women were falling in love with this guy who's a terrorist. I mean, this is, 200 people. By the way, I don't know if this is well publicized, and it should be. 200 people lost at least one limb during that terror attack. During that attack. It was horrific.
They just did that to the Ayatollah. They just glamorized on the New York Times the Ayatollah, who we know is the most evil guy on the
Okay, hear me out. Now, the guy that replaced him, it's revealed that he's gay. Why do you think they did that? Because when they kill him, it'll be a hate crime.
Wow.
Right, because now he's an LGBTQ. Have you seen that today? That's hilarious.
No.
Okay, and it's like I mean, you have to laugh. But apparently, I mean, they put all this.
I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either.
No, but listen, it gets better and juicier. So he goes for treatment, right? Several times. I mean, intense treatment in Egypt, Afghanistan, where they're gay for real. Because he cannot have a child with his wife, right? He goes for intensive treatment. Seriously. And then apparently he has been injured. And these are well-resourced reports, and he's being medicated, but he's extremely aggressive to the male orderlies who are helping him right now today. I mean, I would not
like that.
I joked about it, and I say that this Ayatollah, if he really turned to be gay, what is he going to do with the 72 version? Sorry, like.
Hey, listen, since you brought that up, I want to ask you a question, because this blew my mind. I had no idea until I watched the Iranian protesters and the fact that they were going to hang them and execute them. If you're a woman protester, you don't just get hung. You get raped before you get hung, because they don't want you to go to heaven. Is that true?
I don't think it has an Islamic element to it, doctrinal one, but I will not be surprised if the Iranian regime do that, because they are the most aggressive, evil regime you can have in the Middle East.
Explain how the Persian people are very different, right? The people of Iran are very, very different. I mean, my son's best friend is Iranian, actually, and they're completely different. And actually, they get offended when you call them Muslim, right? If they've left, etc. And so explain, because I don't think people know about this theocracy, which is what it is.
That's what I was going to ask too.
Yeah, Iran is a great country. There are around 100 million people right there right now. But if you understand a little bit of history, it was a kingdom since the old days, and also during the 20th century. They had the Shah. They had no problems. It was almost like America. They were allies of America. We helped them with the education. Actually, many universities helped them make the curriculum. The University of Pennsylvania, Harvard, even MIT, they helped them make the curriculum there. They have some of the brightest people in the Middle East. We helped them even with the nuclear plants, because they wanted energy. And we helped them build that actually for several usage, what was known back in the days during Eisenhower, the Atoms for Peace. It was a program made in the Middle East, especially Iran, and they had a plan to build more than 23 plants just to help Iran with energy. And we had more than 40,000 Americans living there, and they had more than 50,000 students studying in the U.S. So it was really one of the best places you can live in the Middle East. They're women, they're men, everybody, just like any other normal country. And also we had them as an ally. They were they were buying our weapons, they were watching our backs, and we had no problems. Then this Ayatollah Khomeini, he was a cleric. Just think of him like bin Laden. And he started criticizing the regime, and he got some popularity among the students. And then the Shah kicked him out. So he went to Iraq for 13, 14 years. And then he flew to Paris for 1 year because Iraq didn't want to have problems. So they kicked him out. And he got popular in the West, actually. And the media, it's just history repeats itself in a way. They started portraying him as a hero. Oh, look at this guy. He is an opposition to the Shah, and he wants to save Iran. So he became the savior, and he got popular through the French media and the Western media. And then he was promising them false promises. We just want to save Iran. We don't want to do anything bad to women. We want to give people freedom. We just want to free the Iranians. So he sold himself as a savior. When he went back, and the Shah, of course, it was a coup against the Shah, and the Shah fled the country, went to Egypt, then to Morocco, then came to the U.S. for treatment. So he took over with his people. It's a minority. It's not the majority, but he had the support of the left, the communists, and students. And guess what? When he took over, the first victims, they were the communists, the left, and the students.
Useful
and
idiot.
He just brought his circle, and they governed Iran now for 47 years. So I just try to put history in a summarized way. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, some central figures are one of them who was also killed. And by the way, that's why we as activists put down with facts rebellions, right, on the campus, which is so important. I think it's been maybe 12 years I've been at it, going after SJP, JVP, Muslim Student Association on campus, because, and this is the interesting thing now that I'm actually addressing the ones on the right as well, because on the left, the PFLP, which preceded the PLO and Hamas, was a Marxist group, right? So you said It's a communist Marxist group. So Marxism is really the fundamental at it. And so when that is exported into the US, you will see that in CRT and DEI, because it's the oppressor and the oppressed. So when I saw that at first, I thought, oh shit, this is going to mainstream, right? And that's what they did. But the point is that on campus, what the left has been able to do with that model, you guys, is institutionalize revolution. And that is the point. So when you are on campus and you are an SJP, et cetera, and I'm going to explain the right, because I learned something this week about that. They can be anti-Semitic, and I think they're more anti-Zionist. They're fine if you're Jewish. If you're Jewish and you leave your identity at the door and you say you hate Israel and blah, 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 they will let you exist, right? Now, there's another movement that we're now seeing, and this is why we're so focused on campus, where we have groups called, I'm just going to tell you what happened at University of Florida, the Young Republicans, or actually it's called College Republicans of America. Sounds like a great group we want to be a part of, right? And there are 3 different groups of Republican groups, but whatever. This particular one was virulent. They brought in Myron Gaines, Rashid, Holocaust denier. He wears a shirt that mocks the Jews who were incinerated in the ovens after they were gassed onto campus. I found that some of the members had absolutely harassed Indians. I mean, because it's Jew hatred and Hindu hatred, we're seeing that together, but it is a different type of student group that we have to put down. But what they have in common, and actually, I'm proud to say that that UF disbanded the group. Department of Education has come out against them this afternoon, and Congress came out actually in support of UF, and I think the GOP shutting them down. The one thing they have in common, or 2 things, is they celebrate socialism. Okay, so both of these groups, and Jew hatred. Not only Jew hatred, but India hatred, which is what we're seeing from both sides now that Modi has made such a good pact with Netanyahu. We're kind of seeing that, where in the mind of the left, and these faux right people, because now it's breaking here. We understand it. The axis of evil now is just like Iran. It's the U.S. and Israel. And now, because the U.S. and in particular Israel has a good relationship with India, it's India. So it's the horseshoe theory of, I guess, Marxism and certainly anti-Semitism. Do I make any sense to you guys?
Yeah, well, what you're really telling us is it's everywhere in different forms with different groups, and it right, left, center, doesn't matter. But now let's get back to how this plays in, because that's dangerous, right? What you're talking about is dangerous. It's no different than what Rashid brought up earlier. It's dangerous in a different way, because if they'll go with that ideology, what's to say they won't pick up parts of the Islamic terrorist ideology?
They are, and it softens the battlefield. What happens is it creates the structure for terrorism to happen, because what they're doing, Rashid, you said this, is they're saying, oh, it's free speech, which it is, and it's very, and on campus, it's a little easier to, I would say, prosecute a case, not criminally, but civilly, prosecute a case against speech, because speech on campus, I want everyone to know, because of two things, Title IX and Title VII, that's conditioned with federal funding. That means if I'm on Center Square intimidating Jewish students, I can do it on my sidewalk, but I can't do it.
Well, Sloan, if we draw parallels between what happened in Iran and what's happening right now in the U.S., you will see some striking similarities. That actually, it's amazing that this is happening almost half a century later in the same manner, in the same way. Look at Iran was really a wealthy country. The growth was 10% per year, certain years, and they were one of the strongest armies in the region. Nobody was like them. Even Israel was not even close to them, and they were at the highest in everything, in education and science, in modernity, and everything you can name it. Then suddenly these communist Marxists, with the ideology that free Palestine movements, the revolution thing, they brought the Islamists to power, and the Islamists started getting rid of everybody around them, and they created the IRGC, which is like a parallel army for them, and they created the Basij and everything to protect themselves. And they twisted the nuclear program to be a nuclear bomb. And then they started this slogans, death to America, death to Israel, because that's what fueled that that alliance between the Marxists and the student movement and the Islamists. So they started death to America, death to Israel. That's how they built the whole thing around those slogans. And now you look at the US, everything that's anti-Western, everything that is anti-American, everything that is anti-Israel is celebrated among some groups, specific groups, communists, Marxists, leftists, you name it, and Islamists, and look at them, they are together. But I'm sure
Tucker Carlson,
I don't want it to happen. But they start getting, as soon, let's say if God forbid, if they have the power to rule the US, guess what's going to happen? They will get rid of the other guys, and the Islamists will have the upper hand.
Yeah, and we've let them have freedom in communities like in Dearborn, Michigan, and now we're seeing it in Texas, and even in rural communities like where I live, they just opened an Islamic assembly hall. And I'm talking rural, Rashid, very rural, not mainstream. We're talking the closest city is 100 miles away, but it's in a university area. So it's everywhere.
What does that mean?
It's around kids. I mean,
I know,
kids. I mean, young adults.
I mean, Rashid, so why, if there's not really because I mean, for me, if there's not, 100 Jewish families or 50 Jewish families, you'll see them celebrate at a house. Maybe you're not going to see a mosque. Why are we seeing that, Rashid?
Because the way how so many Muslim organizations operate, especially in Western countries, the mosque is the hub, is the cornerstone, is the foundation of an Islamic community that want to take over. So forget about the normal people. I'm not trying to say that every Muslim has this plan to conquer America, but many groups are actually, and they are working strategically to put mosques in certain areas because they want to conquer them. They want to make them a hub. Look at Texas, for example, and what was revealed last year, and the Islamic city, and also it's happening everywhere. As you mentioned, Dearborn, Michigan. I cannot walk in Dearborn, Michigan. I need to have bodyguards there. I will be killed definitely there. And if you walk in Dearborn, it's like it looks like any other.
Mogadishu, for God's sake.
It's even worse than some Muslim countries. It's like Afghanistan or certain areas of Pakistan. It's very bad. It's not safe in so many neighborhoods there, and the reason why we allow this because people started entertaining this idea that we can bring people from those countries and they will assimilate. Well, guess what? They never did. And it's happening in the UK, in France, in Sweden, and many places. It's not just one example. So it failed. We have to admit that whatever immigration philosophy was behind building the what do you call it, multiculturalism, it didn't work. It just failed. It collapsed. So we have to revise our constitution even for freedom of religion, because people think of Islam as a religion, but it's not just a religion. The mosque is not just a religious place. It used to be in the history of Islam, it's a military place, actually. It's like a base. You start a base somewhere to conquer. Yes, they pray in it. Yes, they educate people in it, but it's not limited to that. That's what they put the strategy. That's where they start declaring or claiming dominance over an area. So if you put a mosque there, that's it. It's like putting a flag on that area. It's mine. It's ours. And there is a doctrine in Islam, whatever land we conquer, we never let it go.
Wow.
So let's understand. Okay, so now is a good time for me to talk about a tweet in particular with Randy Fine. Full disclosure, friend of mine, congressman out of Florida, Congressional 6. He has a number of times said Islam is not compatible with the West. He's not the only one that has said that. He said it in different ways. He's talked about Islamophobia. The way that I've described it, okay, is that Islam is a system of law, politics, and actually religion. And a lot of times you'll find, especially if you look in Afghanistan and other places, that it abuses Muslims. So the political system and the legal system abuse Muslims. So we're not talking about, we hate on Muslims, because I'm very upfront. Islam does not belong in America, and and Muslims who have immigrated here that want peace, and the refugees actually. Why do you think they're refugees from Muslim countries? Because they're being oppressed in the first place, right? They wouldn't have that. So the Democrats. I thought this was good for our side. And I'm in politics, and Margot is too. You don't have to be. 2 days after
in politics.
Believe me, if I could be out of politics, maybe an e-cigarette designer or a Ukrainian refugee influencer or a barista at Starbucks, I would do it. But we happen to be in that realm, and I think politically. So it was 2 days after we had 2 Islamic terror attacks in a row, and the Democrats, in their infinite wisdom, came out and said, we're going to sanction Randy Fine because he's saying things about Islam. Never mind that a synagogue was shot up in a terror attack there. Never mind Jews, forget them. They were doing this Islamophobia thing. So let's talk about that, because everyone's seeing it, everyone's feeling it, and you do have the Sharia Free Caucus, and here we've got Congressman Addison McDowell, Mark Harris,
I saw that.
right? And so I think, and I want look, this next discussion, I'm talking to you, grassroots activists, because I want you to feel comfortable talking about this nomenclature, and feel bold about it without offending people. Because my goal, and by the way, Rashid's number one goal is to save Muslims. That's what you live for.
Yes. And I say it always. I say nobody can say I have Islamophobia. I grow up in a Muslim country, and my dad was the imam of the community. I had no reasons to leave Islam except when I started searching for the truth, and I started looking at the narrative, the whole narrative, and I saw it has flaws and it has problems, and it creates a lot of dilemmas for people. So that's why I started criticizing it, and I don't apologize for it. And I tell people that Western countries are not compatible with Islam, and Islam is not compatible with Western countries. Period. It's a constitution by itself. When you look at the Quran and the Hadith, they are a constitution by itself. So if you go to the U.S., you have to leave that behind you, and you are accepting their laws. You are immigrating there. You are accepting their laws, their constitution. Nobody, no country in the world will bring a number of people that are their goal is to change your constitution, to change your whole laws. No country, unless they are stupid or they have a problem. Because if you bring people to the US, you have to make sure they are coming to live under the laws of the US and the US Constitution, not bringing their Quran, their worldview, and trying to change the US to be that constitution or that worldview. If it works, it could have worked in Saudi Arabia. Why it didn't work there? Why it didn't work in any 57 countries in the whole Muslim countries? It didn't work. Even them, they are adopting Western values and Western laws. For example, I'll give you an example, and I use this all the time to debate Muslims. In Morocco, so many things we do, we don't want them from Sharia. For example, if somebody steals, we don't cut his hand. And clearly the Sharia says you have to amputate his hand. Why we don't do it? Why we have a French law that says we have to take him to jail instead of Sharia? And our king in Morocco is a descendant of the Prophet. Why he didn't enforce Sharia? Because he knows it doesn't work. In Saudi Arabia, for example, if a lady is caught in committing adultery, they don't stone her, where Sharia clearly says you have to stone her. Why they don't stone any lady in Egypt or in Jordan? Why they don't do that? Because they know it's cruel and it doesn't belong to the 21st century. So why Americans, if they reject Sharia, they are called Islamophobes? If even Muslim countries are rejecting big parts of Sharia because they know it's embarrassing, it's not humane to do these things in the 21st century. So they are just pretending they are Muslims, but they are actually neglecting more than half of the Sharia law because it doesn't work. It doesn't work with the 21st century.
I did not know any of that.
And you cannot wear, by the way, you cannot wear a keffiyeh in these countries because they know that means that's a sign of taking over your damn country and losing it. That's what it means there.
In Morocco, I think they will let you, but like the majority of people just will, you will be like the bad sheep there if you do it.
Ostracized. So here we
Yeah.
have about 10 more minutes, and I would like for you, if you don't mind, walk us through the things we should look out for that people just don't take, that they're not conscious of, that you particularly know they should be.
First of all, we have to differentiate between Muslims and Islam, and I think that's the fine line where people confuse things. And we don't want to sound, nobody want to sound like a bigot or like just a person full of hatred. I'm not, and I know that you, both of you, are not. We are not against any person who wants to live peacefully and have to have a good life in the U.S., whether he is a Muslim or Jew or Christian or atheist or whatever. I don't really, there are many people who are innocent trying to have just a good life and live peacefully, but there are people who are dangerous to this country, and they are bringing a whole worldview that can change not just America, but the whole world. So saying that, we have to differentiate between the ideology, which is Islam. It's a worldview. It has laws, it has doctrines, it has so many things. We want to fight that, and we have to say it clearly. Our enemy is those ideas because they can destroy the whole country. We have to fight them. We have to expose them. We have to show the whole world what they are. But in the same time, if a Muslim just want to live peacefully, he just want to pray and fast, personally, that's his private life. Nobody will intervene. But if you put a mosque, you want to conquer North Carolina or Virginia or New Jersey or any place, no to that. Or Texas, no to that. We will stand against you because you are not in the U.S. to bring your whole view and conquer the whole earth. You can pray. You can do whatever you want. But there is a part of Islam, we don't want it in the U.S. Personally, I ran away from a Muslim country because they kill apostates in Muslim countries. I cannot go to any Muslim country, actually. If I go to Egypt, I will be killed. If I go to Jordan, I will be killed. If I go to Morocco, I will be arrested. If I go to Mauritania, I will be killed. I don't want to run for my life to the U.S., raise my kids and my family in the U.S., so at the end, I will have a mosque next to my house calling for my death. It's not acceptable. We came to the West because we know there is freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and people are protected. We want to keep it that way. I don't want America to live under Sharia law because I know how dangerous Sharia law is.
Well, I think you made a good point. And I mean, I have to say, Sloan and I have done a lot of work about what we see around mosques in specifically Charlotte. And that is, we see them havens for people that maybe aren't even, they're not Muslim, but they'll be havens for terroristic acts, like things we've seen in DC. We know that they're hub there. And that is concerning to me, is that they accept people that are not of their religion to do things that are not, they're not good for America. I'm surprised at that. That was something that surprised, I think, both. Well, it didn't surprise Sloan. Nothing like that does. But it surprised me, just being an average North Carolinian who doesn't really have the insight that the both of you have. And that's what is so special about having you on here, is that you're giving the average North Carolinian or the average American a viewpoint that they never would see without you.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for exposing these ideas. And I think it's a moral duty for everybody, every American, to be informed and inform others. Otherwise, we will all one day be victims.
So I just want to say, sorry about that. I just want to say that Rashid, you came here about a year ago, and we had you in Lee County. Everyone here knows Jim and Sherry Lynn Womack. And then you met Sam Page, who's been in a very interesting fight, who was a sheriff. And we had a very good crowd. And you spoke with a friend of mine who actually is an IDF, a Christian IDF reservist, who just shared your point of view. And it was, I still to this day hear about that presentation. And to your credit, we went and sat down. And I'm just going to give a shout out to Jason Simmons for 2 hours. With the NCGOP, letting him know. And he was very receptive to the dangers of Islam. Okay. And you will be coming back to Cabarrus County, which is right in Mark Harris's district, right outside. Really, you're going to be speaking about 40 miles from where the ISIS plot was foiled. Fun story, not fun. The FBI caught Christian Sturtevant in Mint Hill. This is a young man who was, anytime someone's radicalized, they say self-radicalized by the Quran and Hadith. But he was going to go into a Harris Teeter and do great damage, and they caught the guy. But you'll be coming back in, and I want to say this so if you're in North Carolina, I'm going to be telling you where that is. We're also going to be meeting with members of the General Assembly, because it's important to give our lawmakers the knowledge to have the strength to deal with this and take this on. I've gotten calls, I can tell you, from almost every county that people are concerned, right? And they don't know what to do. So from the grassroots level, I can tell you from experience, everyone, having these presentations where people can be in a space, and it's not only for Republicans, it's we had several Democrats that night who were behaved. I think it's important to be able to talk about this with someone other than me, who's been through it. And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you're the guy.
I think, information is power, and information without action is useless. So both of these things, so we need to inform people, but also we need to translate that information to policies so we can change things on the ground. If we keep just watching things changing in front of our eyes, then one day we will have no country.
I look forward to the day that you get to talk to the Sheriff's Association here in North Carolina. I think that that's something super important. You would bring a lot of insight to a lot of people who may or may not be exposed to it, whether they were a veteran or not, and at least give them a perspective of things to think and consider. It's not wrong to have questions about people who are different, and you're not hateful to ask those questions.
Yes. Yeah. I'm looking forward, and I will see you soon. So I'm looking forward to that meeting.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, have a good night.
Good evening.
You too. Thank you.